Welfare, let's all level up every Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. here on Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM. Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, ang social-political apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kuwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan.
Getting reliable health information about the COVID-19 outbreak can be a lifesaver. In times of crisis, it is essential to guarantee freedom of expression and the right to public information, in particular to counter the spread of disinformation. During the COVID-19 outbreak, only trust official information sources and credible media outlets. Do not share unverified information. This is a message from UNESCO.
Radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, radyo, katipunan, radyo, katipunan. Sa Blue Eagle kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay at tenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugod, todo sa kayon, tulong at tulong. Lipat na Blue Eagle, galing giting nagigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, katipunan.
Tara na't simulan ng inyong umaga sa mga magagandang refleksyon tungkol sa ating buhay at pananampalataya. Kasama sina Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, Father J. Boy Gonzales at Father Nono Alfonso ng Kapisanan ni Jesus, Father Cali Llamado ng Manila Cathedral at Binibining Risa Singson Kaupeng ng Light of Jesus Community dito sa Kapit Pandasal sa Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM.
May master's degree ka ba in making excuses? Ako si Risa Singson Kaupeng, book author at editor. Magkapit pandasal muna tayo. Isang na-realize ko sa aking pagninilay-nilay sa kwento ni Adan at ni Eva ay ang seryosong epekto ng pagpapalusot. Pwede nating masabing yan ang isa sa mga kasalanan na nagawa ng ating unang magulang kaya't sila'y napatalsik sa paraiso at nagkaroon ng original sin ang sangkatauhan. Nang nahuli ng Diyos na kinain ni Adan at Eva ang bungang ipinagbawal, agad na itinuro ni Adan si Eva. Pinakain po ako ng babaeng ibinigay ninyo sa akin, sabi ni Adan. Na parang binibintangan pa niya ang Diyos dahil siya ang lumikha kay Eva. Ang palusot naman ni Eva ay nilinlang daw siya ng ahas. At mula noon, hindi na natapos ang never-ending na paggawa natin ng mga palusot. Ang problema kapag mahilig tayong magpalusot, hindi natin kailangan harapin ang tunay na problema. Dahil kung meron tayong ibang masisisi, then the problem is never with us. Kaibigan, may master's degree ka ba sa pagpapalusot? Harapin mo ng buong tapang ang mga responsibilidad mo. Ang pagsisisi at pagbabago ay posible lamang kapag inangkin natin ang ating pagkakamali at kasalanan sa mga nangyari. Tayo magdasal. Lord, Bigyan niyo ko ng tapang upang aminin ang aking kasalanan at pagsisihan ito. Amen.
Pagbati po mga katipuneros, this is Cardinal Chito Tagle. Join me every week on the Word Exposed on Air, here on the Voice of the Blue Eagle, Radio-Katipunan 87.9 FM, the Ateneo Campus Radio.
The Voice of the Blue Eagle, radyo-katipunan 87.9.
Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. The Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atenista sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugod. Todo sa kayod, tunong at tulong. Lipad na Blue Eagle, galing hiting at tigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, radyo, katipunan.
Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, ang social-political apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kuwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan.
Ayan, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Welcome to another Friday episode of Kuwentuhang Bayan dito sa Radyo Katipunan.
Ayan, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat, mga katipunero at katipunera na sumusubaybay sa ating programa linggo-linggo, no? So good morning po sa ating lahat.
Muli po, ako po si Francis Gascon at kasama ko po ngayon si Karlo Abadines mula sa Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines. Welcome to our episode 7 ng Kuwentuhang Bayan, Kuwentuhang Halalan on Poverty Alleviation.
Ayan, so maganda, no? Nandito na tayo sa 7th official episode natin. At medyo madami na din tayo na pag-usapan, no? Sa programa natin. From the environmental concerns in the Philippines and of course, mga iba't ibang regions. Last week pa lang, napag-usapan natin concerns naman ng sa North, no? Sa Region 1 at saka sa CAR. It was a really great discussion, no? Kasi alam naman natin dito sa sa Pilipinas, iba-iba talaga yung concerns ng regions, no? May commonalities, pero of course alam din natin na may unique regional concerns din na lumalabas din sa ating mga usapan.
Yes, Karlo. So, bago tayo formal na magsimula, gusto muna kitang kamustahin, Karlo. Kamusta ka naman, no? Kamusta naman yung puso natin dyan? Panatag ba?
Oo, okay naman, okay naman. Mas kalma na din. May Friday vibes, of course. No? So talagang ready na para magpahinga over the weekend. No? But of course, tatapusin pa natin yung mga kailangan tapusin sa linggo na to. So okay naman kami. Ikaw naman, kumusta ka naman, Francis, dyan? Ngayon, sa CDO naman, no?
Oh, okay lang din naman ako dito sa CDO. So masaya naman yung umaga ko kanina. Gusto ko lang i-shout out yung mga kapatid natin na mga Bisaya nakikinig, no? At mga Hiligaynon, waray. So maayong buntag kanatong tanan. Of course, sa Xavier University Center for Legal Assistance. Yung sitwasyon namin dito sa CDO is stable naman at mahigpit pa rin yung pinapatupad yung COVID protocols. So far hindi naman gaanong mataas yung cases dito at ongoing pa rin yung mga booster shots.
Ayan. Buti sana tumaas na yung vaccination rates dyan, no? At I think okay naman yung supplies ngayon sa mga regions kumpara dati, di ba, na parang nauubusan. No? And hopefully maabot na natin, no, yung talagang mataas na immunization rate. Kasi for example, dito sa NCR, 90% na, no? And the younger, yung mga children, sila na yung nabavaccinate. And we're hoping na yan din yung mangyari doon sa regions nyo, no? So hindi ko lang kung kamusta kayo dyan sa CDO, but hoping na more than 50 na ba kayo?
Yes, more than 50 na so far.
Yeah.
And then masaya din kasi yung mga tao is very cooperative and sila ni mismo yung pumupunta sa vaccination site para magpabakuna. And then we're hoping na tuloy-tuloy na para no more lockdown at least. Yun. So sa mga hindi nakakaalam, ang SLB at ang CEAP ay nagsama-sama para mabuo itong programa para mapag-usapan ang mga importanteng issue ng ating bansa. Alam mo, Karlo, I'm very excited sa topic natin ngayon kasi very timely and relevant, which is poverty reduction.
Correct. And importante din to, no, na tayo din mismo, no, sa parte ng civil society, sa mga academic institutions, no, parang tinataas din natin yung diskurso, no, sa usapan sa darating na eleksyon, no. At yun din yung konteksto bakit nakipagsama, no, ang CEAP at saka SLB para talagang mapag-usapan yung mga importanteng issue. Alam naman natin, no, recently madami mga interviews, no, ng mga kandidato. Sometimes it gets very personality driven, no, parang pinapag-usapan lang yung personality ng tao na to, ano yung stance niya. But I think it's important on our side also to get our leaders to talk about, no, the issues that need to be talked about, no. And para sa atin ngayon sa programa natin, poverty is really this complex problem, no. Kanina kinakausap namin yung mga resource persons natin na papakilala din natin soon, no, about the complexities of it, no. It's a long problem, matagal-tagal na to, palagi itong pinapag-usapan. Kahit ako nung estudyante ako ng development studies, I mean, every day, no, napapag-usapan to kung paano ba natin to sosolusyonan, no? Anong klaseng mga innovations, anong klaseng mga aktibidades yung kailangan talagang gawin, no, para masolusyonan itong problema na to, no? So, yun, maganda yun, no? So, ngayong umaga naman, no, we invited 2 guests, no, na magbabahagi naman ng experience nila din, no, at yung mga opinion nila tungkol sa issue na to. At sana mapag-usapan talaga natin itong mga issue na to. So, kasama po natin ang resource persons natin. Una, si Brother Kenneth Martinez, no? President of University of St. Lasalle and currently the GPG champion for poverty reduction. Mag-hi ka naman, Brother Kenneth.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Thank you for inviting me. I'm now based in University of St. Lasalle sa Bacolod, and I look forward to participating and sharing my thoughts on the topic poverty alleviation. Salamat.
Ayan. So, yan si Brother Kenneth. And of course, our second guest naman po ay si Miss Millie Kilayko, currently the president of the Negrense Volunteers for Change. Ayan.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am actually an alumni of Brother Kenneth's school, no? So magkakampi kami. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Brother Kenneth, for bamboozling me to be here. But I'm happy to be able to share with you all later this morning.
Ayan. So excited now. Personally, I'm so excited, no, sa takbo nitong conversation natin ngayon. So matapos magpapakilala ng ating mga kapitapitagan at mahusay na guest ngayong araw, Carlo, gusto nating marinig mula mismo sa kanilang mayaman na karanasan, ang kwento ng kanilang advokasya. Ngunit bago yan, ay kamustahin muna natin sila sa kanilang sitwasyon ngayon. Brother Ken?
Kami dito sa Bacolod, maayos naman ang sitwasyon namin. No? Medyo tahimik, pero alam namin na marami ting nangyayari kasi yung mga estudyante namin nag-pushback ba? Yung nagkaroon ng Typhoon Odette, pati examinations namin, pati yung end of the year activities namin, na-postpone yan lahat kasi yung Typhoon Odette brought down electricity, water service, bank services, and the distribution of goods and services throughout the southern part of the province, including Bacolod itself. So ngayon, medyo this January, meron din increase in community transmission. So hindi ordinaryong buwan, parang everyday may bagong hamon sa atin lahat dito sa probinsya ng Negros. But otherwise, maayos naman kami. Nagtutulungan kami para mataguyod again yung probinsya at yung siyudad.
Ayan, maraming salamat, Brother Ken. So ngayon ay papakinggan naman natin si Ma'am Millie. Ma'am?
Well, actually, Brother Kenneth and I come from the same city, so we actually talk about the same situation. But our organization is also on the ground, mainly in southern Negros and even in some other typhoon hit provinces, where it is still, the situation is still very painful. We see a lot of people thousands of families whose homes were destroyed. And, it's so difficult to even imagine how they can rise from where they are, not only in terms of housing, but also in terms of food. There's still a lot of hunger. These people were hungry even before the typhoon, and they're much hungrier now. And then, of course, restoring their livelihood. So this is going to be a long, long struggle. We've seen how people who were hit by Super Typhoon Yolanda had to take years of struggle before they can rise. And so it is actually the worst of times, but also the best of times, because not at no other time have we seen so much solidarity, so much goodness in the human spirit. People who have hardly anything are giving so much of themselves. And so I think the Lord is giving us a lot of these challenges to be able to bring out the best in us, especially as Christians.
And thank you for that sharing, Miss Millie. And I think that's one of the beauties. It really showed, the good nature of people in a pandemic, in calamities. It's a terrible time for sure. It's not something that we wish upon anyone. But in a sense also, we get a sense of the generosity of people that you were mentioning, na talaga nagbibigay yung mga tao kahit konti na lang. And we saw this in various phenomena from the community pantries and how people were giving. And later we can also talk about how we've seen that goodness come out of this pandemic. But I guess before we deep dive into just talking about the issue of poverty and the complications of this, baka maganda muna matanong, para sa inyo po, how did this become an advocacy for you that you feel moved and passionate to respond to really respond to the call of serving the poor and making sure that their situations improve, Baka Brother Kenneth, kayo po muna, you can share your vocation story, ganun ba?
Konting vocation story din yan. Kasi, as a young child, I was very extremely asthmatic. Yung may sakit ako madalas ng asthma. So I couldn't join in the normal athletic activities of our all-boys school. So I had to find out an identity outside of sports and activity. So I could just imagine in high school, I got involved in Lasalle Apostolic League, which is a catechetical outreach and would organize masses, collections for the poor. Tapos kami mismo ang nagdi-distribute sa poor, sa National Mental Hospital, sa various agencies in the area. High school pa lang ako. That was how I found some form of meaning and identity as a high school student. But when you think of it, if I want to look fast forward now, it's also my involvement in our university, Bahay Pag-asa. Kasi kami, dito sa university, we have another campus in Barangay Granada, where we have Bahay Pag-asa, which is a residential center for youth in conflict with the law. So we have 27 kids. And in 2002, I was here. And I was one of those who started it along with Brother Gas. Si Brother Gas ang prime mover noon. And when I came back here, parang nakita ko yung profile ng mga bata came from very deprived and very marginalized and abused background. So parang, like for example, tonight, every Friday, doon ako tumutuloy. Doon natutulog ako doon. Meron kaming house doon sa loob, brother's house. So nakikitulog si Brother Dan Fenton, isang Amerikanong brother nandun. Nakikita ko yung ang bata, walang katapusan ang pumapasok doon. We cannot even accommodate more than 30. But there's already a waiting list of 15 to 18. So sabi ko, ano kaya to? Bakit hindi natin matulungan itong mga bata nito at palakihin yung operasyon namin? So parang every time I go there, it's a slice of a reminder that the mission is not complete until we figure out a way to prevent these kids from getting into trouble. And that is perhaps coming from a root of their very poor background. Not only economically, but also educationally and in terms of morals and support for them in their growth.
Brother, is that something that also moved you in a sense, no, to join the Lasalle Brothers, no? Is that experience from college or from enjoying that organization? Is that what led you to, in a sense, your mission also?
Minsan, you have to figure out as a young man. Yung question ko is, ito na ba yung gagawin ko? Di ba? Parang minsan pag nahirapan ka sa ginagawa mo, ito ba yung gusto ko? Sometimes you kind of think all the time and change direction of what you originally wanted to do to be able to accommodate the answer of what you really wanted to do, what finds meaning and purpose in your life. So sabi ko, kung hindi yun, sabi ko, anong gagawin ko? Di ba? So there comes at a point, hindi lang once yan, many times merong mga tanong. I'm sure Millie has a question, an answer to this na hindi lang isang beses ka magtatanong kung anong gusto mong gawin, anong dapat mong gawin. Kasi life, if you're open to life always asks these questions eh. Parang tatanungin ka lang ngayon sa panahon ngayon, sa election ngayon, is this what I really want to do? If I continue in what I'm doing, will it really matter with the questions that are really more relevant and more pressing today? So, pag ganun kang klaseng tao, kasi bukas ang kalooban mo at isip mo, talagang ang sagot mo magbabago eh. Pwede magbago. So, nagbago ko ng gawain. Nagbago ko ng landas.
And, that's a very beautiful sharing, no, brother, because I think from a sense of encounter, right, encountering really, the boys in Bahay Pag-asa, doing outreach activities, and that in sense transforms you, to respond, and I think that's a very beautiful way to put it, a response that even led to a vocation. In a sense. I'd love to hear then, from Miss Millie. Kayo naman po, parang what's your vocation? Naging vocation story pala yung usapan, hindi po. Just to introduce, how did you get... Yes.
Well, actually, as Brother Kenneth says, we always ask that question throughout our life. Am I doing the right thing? And then, of course, over and over again from the past, having grown up in a Catholic home and school, in a Catholic education, I've always thought that what I was doing at the moment was the right thing. But I'd like to share a recent experience, just this experience that goes back a few years ago. One of the things that our organization does is to provide boats to fishermen or fishermen's helpers. These are those who do not have boats of their own, Those that, so they earn as low as just 50 pesos or 100 pesos a day on good days, because all they do is just to ride with fishermen. We've provided about 5,000 boats, also to those who lost their boats in the disaster. But one day we were in a small shore town village, and we were looking for a beneficiary for one more boat. And there were about 4 or 5 families of fishermen's helpers who were ready to be interviewed for a boat. After we finished 4 boats, I noticed that, four potential recipients of boats, I noticed there was a little boy who was beside me who had been tagging along with me the whole morning. And so I asked the boy, I said, "Do you need anything?" And the boy said, "Yes, because I don't want you to go home until you have interviewed my father." And I said, "Where's your mother?" Because in some of the cases, the fathers were out at sea, and so we only interviewed the mother. And he said, "My mother's gone. She ran away with another man." So he said, "Please wait for my father and give him a chance." So I said, "Okay, lead us to your home, and we will wait for your father then." When we got to his home was just about the size of a king-size bed. They had no flooring except the ground on which they stood. It was lunchtime, and so this 9-year-old boy had to prepare lunch for his 2 younger siblings. Lunch was just a little pot of rice. They had no money for charcoal or firewood, so he took whatever piece he could find to light a fire with, and it was a few pieces of styrofoam, which of course gave off a pungent smell. They had nothing to eat with the rice. They ate with their bare hands, and they drank water from a tin can which was found in somebody else's trash. Of course, in my heart, I knew that this family was so poor that his father would get the boat. Then the father arrived. So I asked the father, his name was Hermie, and I said, "Hermie, do you have a dream?" I expected Hermie to say, "I dream of owning a boat of my own, so I can tell him, 'Lo and behold, you have a boat.'" But no, he just looked at me and he stared and he said, "I have no dream." And then I realized that when a man was as poor as Hermie was, a man ceases to be a human being. He only lives to eat and sleep and eat to sleep. And so I said to myself, what can we do to persons like this? How many millions of Filipinos are like Hermes, who only just live to exist? And then I recalled what Pope Francis has said, that only an experience of God's love can prepare the mind and the heart for everything the church offers and teaches. So I said to myself, I don't have skills to give Bible studies. I'm not a good teacher in the classroom. I cannot do much to spread God's word, but I think I can share an experience of God's love, especially to those whom he loves most, which is the poor. I may not even be the best person to provide them that experience, but at least in an organization, I can help empower those who have the skills to spread God's love. And it's so, my involvement in the organization I'm in has become more than just being a part of it, or just being a member, or being a leader in the organization. It has become a mission to me and the venue for me to be able to allow others to experience God's love.
There you go. Go, Francis.
Iyan, maraming salamat, Ma'am Millie and Brother Ken, for that very humbling and inspiring experience. Parang ruin for life, Karlo, from college hanggang ngayon, no? Same experience din for me, no, from volunteering in Eastern Samar as a Jesuit volunteer. After Yolanda, working with farmers, fisher folks, and women, makita at ramdam mo talaga yung hirap at mga challenges ng community, but nafe-feel mo yung inspiration to work and to move forward dahil maraming mga kabataan na mataas pa ang pangarap at gustong umahon sa kahirapan.
Actually, ako nga din, just to add, no, well, the campaign for CEAP is #VoteLove, no, in a sense for the elections also. We're, in a sense, the lens of love, especially in a very Christian sense, no. Malakas talaga yung ano niya, no? It calls us to respond, no? Tumugon sa mga nakikita natin. But I guess just to add, no, as we talk about the problem of poverty today at yung topic natin sa usapan na to, no, I think the value in Catholic education is really that encounter. There is something that one needs to encounter the truths of kung ano yung nangyayari sa mundo, no? The more protected we are, the more we kind of box ourselves. Di ba minsan sinasabi nila ang problema, for example, sa structure natin sa pagplano ng city natin is that people who have much are put in bubbles, in subdivisions, di ba? In a sense, you put walls, right, that prevent you from really seeing the realities, di ba? Na ito yung nangyayari na kahirapan. This is how bad it really is, no? And the more we protect people from seeing that, no, the more hindi sila tatawagin or mas parang alam mo yung magiging manhid, hindi na nakikinig na ito yung nangyayari sa mundo, no. But I think that's a beautiful aspect, at least for Catholic education, that we try our best, no, to get people out there to encounter, to be with communities, kasi that's the way that one needs to, in a sense, it's a process, a step to be taken if we want to transform hearts, no, to respond to the poverty. Kaya ang ganda ng kwento nila kasi that's really the encounter that shifts us, no, to respond. So, sige, go Francis, susunod. Ang dami ng comments. No?
So yes, yung personal experience talaga yung magdadala sa atin kung saan at kung ano tayo ngayon, yung disposition natin. So mapunta uli. So sa malapit na ang eleksyon at maraming issues na dapat tugunan, no, lalong-lalo na locally and nationally. Kailangan din maisali sa agenda at plataforma na ng mga candidates natin ngayong taon, no. If you were to address kay Millie at Brother Ken, if you were to address these two candidates running in this election, why should poverty alleviation be part of the top agenda points in the candidates' platforms? Millie?
Poverty alleviation is very important because, well, as of the last statistics we saw, there are 3.5 million Filipinos who are jobless, 2.5 million are hungry, 90 million living below the poverty line. And I remember I was hearing Mass at radyo-katipunan last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, and the homily of the priest said that in the Philippines, there are 105 million Filipinos who have less than 105 pesos in their wallets. So poverty dominates the life of every community in a city, province, or country that the candidate wishes to serve. And I think that poverty alleviation should be first and foremost of any candidate's agenda. And I would like to see candidates focus first on jobs or hanap buhay, because providing jobs is poverty alleviation with dignity. It provides a person access to economic benefits while retaining his dignity, not receiving dole-outs, whether this be temporary or permanent. And of course, there should be focus on education, because education is a great equalizer. So educational opportunities for all is the only way for our nation to be able to progress to the next level. And hunger and malnutrition, of course, is very basic, because for every home that is poor, there is always a child who is hungry and malnourished. I think those are the 3 most important things that any candidate should be able to address, whether he runs for a municipal, city, provincial, or a national position.
Sa akin naman, kung titingnan mo, when we look at the national, those running for national elections, we like to see their sincerity and their track record, di ba? Very important yan kasi puro pangako na din nadidinig natin. Sincerity when you look at poverty alleviation, maraming aspeto yan. Nasa primary healthcare, what is their stand towards providing primary healthcare? Rural shelter among those who are most disadvantaged, especially the agricultural and fishery sector. Yung coastal towns are the poorest, pati yung mga agricultural towns. are the poorest. Their shelter cannot withstand a category 3 typhoon, di ba? Yung primary education, yung strengthening, ensuring that walang bata na magkakaroon ng no read, no write. Tapos yung sinabi ko kanina, rural electrification and drinking water. Yung Typhoon Odette obliterated a source of electricity for a lot of people. Without electricity, hindi sila nakaka-pump ng water at hindi sila nakakakuha ng receive banking services. And mga ATM sarado, mga cellphones hindi ma-charge. So kung titingnan mo, we need to look at candidates who are sincere for countryside development. Why are the 7 richest cities in Metro Manila and only 3 cities qualify as rich outside of Metro Manila? So kung titingnan natin, very critical to na ang pagtanaw ng eleksyon na to is to see the whole country develop. No? I think this is very important because so many promises have been given to the poor when they have continued to be poor based on what Millie's statistics have shown. Why is it not working?
Thank you for that, Brother Kenneth. No, really, the reality of countryside development is very real, and even statistics would show majority of those who are poor are actually belonging, no, to the agriculture sector, which in general would be seen in the rural. No, but I'd like to ask the both of you in a sense, what would be certain policies? Would you have like policies in mind or things that you've thought about that you think might be good to really for people to consider, no, candidates, whether it be in the local or even legislators in the national senate and whatnot? Would you have some suggestions? Anyone can go first, no, Brother Kenneth or Miss Millie.
Yung policy, alam mo, yung tinitingnan kong policy is basically process. Nakikinig ba ang ating mga kandidato? At sino pinapakinggan nila? So when I look also at those for national elections, I also look who is running with them in their slate. So very important din lang, hindi lang yung presidente, tinitingnan natin sino ang pinasok nila sa slate nila for senatorial at sino ang kasama nila madalas. So di ba, very important din yung titingnan natin yung the process in which they decide, the influences that they listen to formally and informally, the data on which they act. Kasi titingnan natin yung data-driven dapat ang mga policies natin. Ang research-driven dapat ang policies natin. Para hindi yung nabulungan lang ng gabi, policy na the next day. Di ba? Or meron kang rich backer, katapos yung rich backer dictates what policy you will have tomorrow, who you will favor. So very important yung may integridad ang tao na hindi siya basta-basta nadadala ng mga influential people but really are driven by the needs of the common people. Very important yan sa akin kasi we can take advantage of many things. But when we look at the welfare of so many Filipinos who are poor, we have to look at how our leaders are operating and being influenced and what processes and influences they're allowing.
So, understandably, there are pressing policies, but the need for process. No? Yes, Ms. Millie, go.
And I think adding to what Brother Kenneth was saying is that as we look at the personalities and the decisions and the environment of these people who are running for office, I think one of the basic things that is very important in their lives should be transparency. I'm not talking about transparency as a figure of speech, but really how transparent are these people about their lives? So it should even go beyond the people they run with or their influences, but how have they really been conducting their lives? I think 80 or 90% of the people who are running for public office have been officials before, whether they were barangay captains or councilors or city mayors or whatever it was. How transparent have they been about their governance? About the expenses that they spent for, about the donations that they have received. I think if every person should be able to account for every favor that he has received and account for all the relationships that he has engaged with. I mean, why am I chummy with this businessman, and why am I rejecting this businessman? And on the ground, we've seen how people have been deprived of so much of their rights as citizens because their government officials were not transparent with their purchases, with the resources that government is giving, and with their alliances. So I think this just reinforces what Brother Kenneth has been saying. But I just wanted to put a word to that the transparency is very important, and that is something that we should hold our candidates for.
So other than the integrity, and connected to the integrity actually is the importance of transparency and ensuring claro where the politicians stand. All right. Francis, you might want to ask the next
Yes, so I would like to affirm with what Miss Millie shared, being transparent both in personal and government transaction is a good indicator actually of an ideal leader. As in, for me din personally, yan yung una kong binabasehan, yung being transparent sa mga ginagawa mo. And lately, maraming talk and dialogue with candidates for our president. At naglatag sila ng mga policies, advocacies. Sinagot din nila yung mga issues that are critical ngayon. So, what are some of your initial thoughts with regards to how the 2022 election is unfolding? Happy ba? Frustrated ba? And especially in the discussion of poverty. So, yun po. Kung na-address ba nila?
Brother, you want to go ahead? Okay.
No, Millie, ko muna.
Okay. On the matter of poverty alleviation, on the national level, my personal choice of a presidential candidate, I think, has addressed this issue very well. And my candidate has talked about her priorities as far as hanap buhay, as far as education, about being able to bring back confidence in government, confidence both by the international and the local community, how to gisingin ng lakas ng mga industriya, the blue, the green, and the gold industries, especially the blue and the gold industries, which refers to the fisheries and agriculture, because the fishermen and the farmers are the poorest of the Philippine sectors. And I think that every candidate on all levels should be able to address that. Now, I mean, if you cannot address that issue, that means that you are ignoring a large sector of your community, removing discrimination at work, and giving importance to MSMEs, and helping those who have run out of work. So on the national level, especially in a presidential level, I don't see anything missing there. With regard to the candidate I support, I see a lot of missing in the other candidates. That's why I have made my choice. But if we look at the provincial and the community levels, I think that is still largely missing. And I think we have to be sure that our local candidates should get the point that the points to be able to address poverty in the community level is very important, and is even more important than addressing it on the national level. And sad to say, in many of our experiences with local governments, especially in times of crisis, I found that our local governments have been wanting in this regard. And we, the electorate, should put them to task. Can they name specific programs with which they can alleviate poverty. And like between Brother Kenneth and myself, I think we've said a lot, from electrification to hunger to, there's just a lot of issues. And these are best addressed on the local level, before having to reach the national level. You don't go to a president because you've one child in your home who's malnourished. You don't go to a president because electrification in your community is inefficient. These are issues that should be addressed at the local level. And unless we do that, even the best of presidents, the best of senators will be powerless to be able to solve the problems of the whole country. So no one can do that except us at the local level to provide pressure on our local candidates. Because I think elections at the local level has been reduced very much to becoming more personality driven. And there are even many family squabbles or community squabbles because of that. So it is incumbent upon us, the citizens, to make sure that we get it to a different level.
Thank you. Kayo po, Brother Kenneth, would you like to share?
Maganda yung shinare talaga ni Millie. Makita mo na babad siya sa realidad ng mga LGUs, local government. And I support her for taking to task the local governments. Kasi minsan nakikita tayo na national, but the real action is in the local government. Sa cities, sa provinces, sa towns. What I'd like to encourage is that, all those running for positions should have the venue for them to share and to be questioned and to be accountable. So in various forms of town hall meetings, online forums, even face-to-face, limited face-to-face, dapat alam natin what do they stand for, what are they going to work, and what is their track record, and have they led an accountable and transparent life. So very important na all those aspiring for these positions should not withdraw, should engage, and should really, dapat itong mga discussion nito to the barangay level at the different levels of possible that we will get them. Because kung ngayon pa lang, hindi pa sila makasagot o hindi nila magagawa yung katotohanan, paano pa pag nakaupo na sila? Kung yung palang hindi na sila accountable, paano natin magiging accountable pag nakaupo na sila? So very important yung in terms of poverty alleviation, ano na nagawa nila, saan pumunta ang resources nila, at sino ang nag-contribute sa resources nila. So yung sinasabi ni Millie, yung truth, accountability, and transparency, that's being demanded of us on a day-to-day basis by our own stakeholders. Hindi kami nag-hesitate yan. Pero bakit yung iba nag-hesitate? So kung titingnan mo sa mga presidential aspirants natin o sa senatorial aspirants, may aangat dyan. Definitely, may umaangat. And we hope that that would be really something that most people will see as soon as we get more people engaged in sharing their thoughts and views and being open to being questioned. Yan ang very important. Makikita mo yung demeanor and future of our country by their behavior and engagement today. So yan importante, gusto kong malaman. Kung itong poverty alleviation is very important, they should be able to share their thoughts and to be questioned. Diba? Kung ngayon nag-a-avoid, paano na natin manalaman kung anong mangyayari when they're already in power? So this is really a challenge to all those aspiring to be truthful and accountable now, and to be truth and accountable when they are already in their positions. And this is our role, is to ask these questions, no matter how difficult they are.
Ayan, ang galing lang So, natumbok talaga especially with Ma'am Millie kanina na na-share niya yung sa agriculture sector as one of the primary considerations na because kasi no farmer, no food, and there will be no future, no? Gutom na naman. So that is why very important yung bottom-up approach, no, in addressing the issues from local levels, especially sa mga local leaders natin. Kasi dapat ang agenda ng masa or mga nasa laylayan. Ma'am Melly, personal question ko to. Ano yung best practice niyo while doing development work for how many years na gusto mong i-share sa government to be replicated? May mga best practice ba kayo or tingin niyo ay ano tawag nito? Very efficient and effective in terms of development?
Well, for me, one is being able to listen. As you talked about bottom-up approach, and I think that is very important because no one is more important in any project than the stakeholder himself or herself. We cannot preach to people or tell them what they need. We have to listen to them. And unless we listen to them, we will never be efficient. And secondly is transparency. I go back to that again because it is also very important for those who fuel our work. Now, so I mean, like most of us, many of us in development or in the NGOs, we really just link dreams to donors and donors to dreams. And so we have to be very transparent all the way through with what, with what we deliver from what we get. And then, of course, the third is we have to practice what we preach. So if we have to be people who listen, if we have to be people who are truthful and transparent, that should start with ourselves. So I think whatever we always look at ourselves just like little public officials, who are accountable to the people. Although the people do not pay us, but we think that our accountability to everyone is just as important as though we were elected by the people. But I think with that, you cannot go wrong.
Ganda. Brother Kenneth, you want to add something to that also? Maybe in your community experiences. Yeah.
Yung meron kami ditong balayan, which is a social action arm of the university. Years ago, they got involved in Kawayan, which is one of the longest sea coast in Negros Occidental. And the fishermen at that time were doing dynamite fishing, and that contribute to their poverty. And the way to intervene was to organize them. So for mga 10, 15 years, Kawayan was the place we would go to. And by the time we ended our engagement there, the fishermen were themselves Bantay Bayan, Bantay Dagat, and they organized themselves. Kasi yung paisa-isa na humaharap sa mayor, parang hindi malakas. Pero pag na-organize na sila as an association, very important, nakikinig na yung mayor kasi association sila. So it's very important that we find allied members to come together and to put to task. No? So very important yung mag-organize tayo para magtulungan na ang common agenda natin to uplift people out of poverty is also something that is a common aspiration, not an individual aspiration. It's a common aspiration among different communities. Therefore, different communities should organize and help also be partners in alleviation, in poverty alleviation. So very important yung organization. It's very important so that we can be heard and we can have the experience of solidarity among ourselves, that we're not alone.
And I think that points to a concrete something that communities can do in a sense in our extension services in our schools. That seems to be an opening for schools to really consider, in a sense, to organize, that will give voice also. And I guess it's beautiful how Miss Millie also shared the perspective of the local. Usually we don't hold our officials accountable. We see debates at the national level, but at the local parang kulang pa po. And I guess that points me to my question now. Maybe there are specific invitations you would like the CEAP community to look into in terms of getting involved in the elections, but also getting involved directly with poverty alleviation. Maybe you have certain things you would want to tell our CEAP community listening today. Brother Kenneth, Ms. Millie.
Alam mo, ang mga schools, like many institutions in our country today, we really are how do I say it, in a roller coaster ride, because the operations of schools have been upended by the pandemic. And truly, had been a difficult and challenging experience for Catholic schools because they themselves have become poorer. When you talk about people who are poor, they're not talking about the daily subsistence of agricultural workers and fisher folk, but also we have come to see middle class people suddenly find themselves existing on a day-to-day basis because either nawalan ng trabaho, nawalan ng trabaho yung OFW, umuwi. So you can see Catholic schools are also having the brunt of the economic dislocation of many of the students and their teachers. So for me, tinitingnan ko is the role that is first and foremost, that is proper, is to strengthen truth-telling, to strengthen facts, no? So very important yung truth and sharing of falsity, false news. We have an opportunity to enable large groups of students and our research teams, our own on the ground, to do fact check. No? Very important yung role kasi education pa yan eh. Baka some people have blamed education for the wrong information that young voters are getting. I won't get into that, but at the end of the day, we need to strengthen our commitment to share the truth, the facts. Second, basically, is to look at how in our research activities, we can provide more data. Kasi data is now the gold eh. Data is, and this is because poverty is multidimensional. Hindi lang economic yan eh. There are very cultural and values, wrong values that perpetuate poverty. So kailangan multidimensional, multisectoral ang approach towards poverty alleviation. And education needs to be part and parcel of that. We don't have any concrete programs yet because as I shared to you before, marami ang nangyayari sa Catholic schools ngayon na halos hindi pa nakakapag-cope sa pangyayari. And but there are things that we can already do. Be venues for town hall assemblies. Be venues for forums. Explicitly share the value system of what we look for in a leader. No? Explicitly share and ibabanggayan sa mga local leaders running in their places with the opportunity for the local leaders to enrich on what has the research been given to them, no? So very important din yun. Be resources for accountability and transparency.
Thank you so much, Brother Kenneth. That's a very critical role, no? That I think Catholic schools can really take on, especially at the local level kung saan kulang yung usapan, no? Miss Millie, kayo po. Maybe you have other different.
Well, while Brother Kenneth was talking about the truth, I did a quick Google search because I remember a quote from my favorite Pope Francis again, and I found it. And this is what he said: "The mission of schools and teachers is to develop an understanding of all that is true, good, and beautiful." And I think in the context of today's elections, what is true? So we, as Brother says, we have to be able to help students differentiate between what is being said, between truths and lies. And when we find the truth, we have to stand up for that. What is good? In today's election, it is a fight between good and evil. It's very obvious. It's obvious at the national level and those at the local levels who support what is evil. are not what is good. So we have to be able to show, especially the youth and the community, the difference between good and evil. And again, stand up for what is good. And beautiful, the use of communication facilities, our venues, our responses to problems, and help students and the youth, especially to be able to use the facilities and venues and apps, and all the social media facilities to promote what is beautiful rather than what is evil and what is ugly. And it does not matter whether our students are of voting age or not. Every student or every young person is an influencer. He can be an influencer among his siblings, an influencer among his families. But if we help, if we help underline the mission of schools and teachers according to what Pope Francis says, I think, and we do that in the context of today's elections, I think we will be able to build a better, a brighter, and a more discerning community. And we only have 3 months to go till people make their choices. So we do not have much time. So I think this is a race against time. So we really have to take our roles very, very seriously, because personally, I think that this is a very critical time of our nation's history. It's a fight between good and evil. And our own Christianity is being put to a test in the choices that we make.
Thank you, Ma'am Millie, for pushing for inclusivity, cooperation, and collaboration among different shareholders of our society. And so, do you have final message po para sa mga nakikinig sa atin, Brother Ken or Ma'am Mel, na gusto niyong ipaabot, no? Hindi lang sa mga CEAP community, but also sa mga listeners natin, especially sa mga nanay, mga tatay, who are working now.
Salamat, Francis. Alam mo, my engagement in my mission as an educator and as a Lasalle brother is fed by prayer, no? I can't share to you enough about how prayer and my relationship with God has sustained me over almost 36 years as a brother. Minsan, hindi mo maintindihan ano nangyayari. Minsan, hindi mo magets. And many times, you just don't know what to do. And I think one of the things that we need to turn to is our prayer. Our understanding that there are graces and blessings that happen not only to ourselves, but to the people and communities and country that we work with when we pray. Second is yung connection natin. Ang Pilipino, malakas ang pagmamalasakit. Hindi tayo magugutom lahat kung marami ang nagmamalasakit. Ang connection natin sa mga mahihirap. Admittedly, many times I just stay in the office the whole day. I really don't know what's happening outside. It's as if this is the whole world. The pandemic has brought us into similar setups where we are just enclosed in our area, in our rooms, in our offices, because we're so scared to get out. I just was wondering whether is there a way we can continue to connect to the need of our poor people so that we can understand that even in isolation, we can do more. We can do a lot. And in one way or another, prayer, our connection to the poor, is also what we hope for in this election. That will happen, that we will get the best candidate, and this is God's candidate. Not only the people's choice, but God's candidate. We need to pray for that. And we need our poor communities, our all Filipinos to see that, to experience that, and to be led by God to that choice. Thank you very much.
And I say amen to Brother Kenneth's message.
Miss Millie, yun na po? Or you wanna add? Amen? Yung ano ba?
He said everything that had to be said, so amen.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Kenneth and Miss Millie, especially for the closing words, no, Brother Kenneth, about prayer and also reminding us that we have a connection, that we are social beings, that in a sense we are accountable also to each other, no? And sometimes I think it's critical, as yung binabanggit niyo po, no, to have the candidate to vote for the person, because we have a responsibility to each other. So we have to be voting the candidate who will really ensure, no, that the best governance will be given to the people, no? I guess just some points as we close the program, no. Thank you for this beautiful conversation, Brother Kenneth, Miss Millie. I think it's really a wonderful experience listening to all of this, no. And one of the things that we can really get, no, is the importance of process, the listening process. Na tayo, we're invited to do that as communities, but more especially the government, no, that ideally we can talk about all these policies, and yet the invitation is to listen, no, to listen to what people need. And I guess there's also a critical role. The second that I would just want to point is the critical role of our own communities as facilitators of that listening process, no? Whether to organize forums, to organize communities, to organize themselves, no, so that they will have a voice, so that the government would actually listen. And I really like the point of Miss Millie po, no, na kailangan bigyan ng pansin ang lokal, no? The local government, since there are no national debates about them, maybe tayo, no, the schools can be the avenues for such
Avenues.
No, correct, no. At the end, and finally, transparency and integrity. Nothing will beat that, especially we ask for our leaders, no. So for everyone, palakpakan naman po natin. Thank you so much, no, for the guests, and thank you so much, Miss Millie and Brother Kenneth, for joining us. Yeah. So Francis, maybe you have some last final points.
Ayan, maraming salamat po sa inyong pagbabahagi, Brother Kenneth at Miss Millie. No, parang personally, parang gusto ko na ding maging brother at mag-serve sa community kasi very affirming yung mga experiences nila. Maraming salamat din sa mga tagapakinig natin sa iba't ibang sulok ng Pilipinas, lalong-lalo na sa mga active natin na listeners, no, sa Facebook. Maraming nagme-message din. Sana'y may napulot po kayong aral na magagamit natin, no, hindi lang sa oras ng eleksyon, kundi pati na rin sa pang-araw-araw na gawain. Muli, ako po si Francis Gascon, kasama ko po si Karlo Abadines from CEAP at si Ma'am Millie Kilayko at Brother Kenneth Martinez. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Millie.
Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you, Francis,
Thank you.
Carlo. Thank you.
Palalimin ang kamalayan sa mga isyong napapanahon. Makisangkot at makiisa kasama ang Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan, ang social-political apostolate ng Kapisanan ni Jesus. Ito ang Kuwentuhang Bayan mula alas 11 ng umaga tuwing Biyernes dito lang sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM. Dahil naniniwala kami na posible ang isang mas mabuting lipunan at maaari itong simulan sa isang kwentuhan. Radyo Katipunan. News,